Folks, today we are taking a look at another mock draft from around the league, from NFL insiders, ESPN, all the sports media insiders around the NFL. Today we are taking a look at Bucky Brooks mock draft 1.0 from NFL.com. Bucky Brooks, again, much like Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com, one of the more in sync NFL draft insiders in the business today. So, as I said with the last mock draft, there are a lot of interesting things that could happen for the Buccaneers. They could go in a lot of different directions. And of course, here at the top of the draft, you see pretty typical stuff. You know, the Bears not trading the pick, them getting one of the best players available. Texans, they're getting Bryce Young. Jalen Carter going to the Arizona Cardinals. That would be pretty interesting. Stroud to the Colts. All these different types of things are going on at the top of the draft. But if we go all the way to pick number 19, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, you will see that Bucky Brooks has them selecting Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas. Now, this is a very interesting selection in my opinion. And if we read the little snippet here by Bucky Brooks, it says, Todd Bowles' defense could use a young thumper with pass rush ability to complement Devin White on the second level, especially if Lavonte David departs in free agency this offseason. Now, I will say this. Drew Sanders is a very, very good running back. He is a middle linebacker, and he did have 7.5 sacks this past year for Arkansas, but when I look at this selection, I just don't know if it necessarily makes all the sense in the world. Don't get me wrong, I do understand where Bucky Brooks is coming from, right? If Lavonte David does leave in free agency, or if he even possibly retires, which is 100% an option as well, the Buccaneers will need a little bit of juice at inside linebacker to go along with Devin White. But you have KJ Britt there, who they've been developing for the past couple of years. You have some other younger guys in there. Free agency could be a potential option. You could get a veteran at what I feel could be a relatively low cost, and I think that this pick at number 19 could be used for other means. Don't get me wrong, the Buccaneers could get a linebacker in the second, in the third round, and that would make a lot of sense, but I feel like at pick number 19, there are some pretty pressing matters. And also, I think that you may want to get a guy with some coverage ability, as Devin White has still struggled in coverage in recent years, so you may want to draft a guy who's really good at coverage in case Lavonte David isn't there to complement Devin White and what he is able to do. It would be a little tough in terms of the middle coverage of this defense if you have two just really crazy pass rushing inside linebackers in Devin White and in Drew Sanders here. Wouldn't leave you a lot of coverage guys there in the middle, and you could see that get exploited by some offenses around the league. So when I take a look at that pick, again, really interesting thing to note here, Bucky Brooks also has the Ravens selecting Anthony Richardson, similar thing that we saw with Daniel Jeremiah. There are some other interesting guys. Cam Smith out of South Carolina, he was a junior redshirt. He is a cornerback that could be interesting. Keely Ringo, Georgia, sophomore. I mean, basically anybody from Georgia, I think, is going to be a pretty decent player selected in the first round. You have Deonte Banks out of Maryland. I'm a pretty big Maryland guy, and I think that Deonte Banks, I guess I should say, could be a pretty decent cornerback too, next to Carlton Davis. And you also have some other interesting names somewhere down the line as well. I don't think the Buccaneers would be interested in maybe a safety or a running back, anything along those lines, but whenever you look at cornerback, whenever you look at maybe an edge rusher, something along those lines, Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon could be interesting. Joey Porter Jr., which that's just kind of dope, by the way. Went to Penn State. He's a junior. I mean, the dude's just an absolutely long, rangy cornerback, great tackler as well. That's just kind of cool as well to see another junior out here in the NFL draft. One thing that is interesting here in this Bucky Brooks mock draft is very, very, very few edge rushers, which was a pretty big difference that we saw between Daniel Jeremiah's and Bucky Brooks mock draft. I fully believe that a edge rusher would be a possibility. And I know you can say, well, come on, this guy is basically a rusher, Drew Sanders at linebacker, but you got to remember, you know, Shaq Barrett is coming off of a very serious Achilles injury. How is he going to look whenever he comes back? Anthony Nelson is going to be a free agent. Carl Nassib is going to be a free agent. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me at all if the Buccaneers were to select an edge rusher in the first round of this NFL draft. I mean, you take a look at Drew Sanders. Yes, he did have 7.5 sacks, but Let me see if I can just go ahead and take a look at his stats real quick for all of you lovely folks here. Yeah, let's take a look here. Drew Sanders, look, he is 6'5", 230 pounds. If we can get a little bit of a look here, right here, 6'5", 230 pounds. That's not an edge rusher. And yes, while he did have 9.5 sacks, my apologies, I thought he had 7.5 sacks. I was shorting him a little bit. He had 9.5, and that's very good. 13.5 tackles for loss, 103 total tackles in there as well. The dude can do it all. He can be a run stopper. He can be a blitzing inside linebacker, but he doesn't have the size, in my opinion. He would have to bulk up to be an outside edge rushing linebacker for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and I just don't see that being a thing. I think the Buccaneers could use some edge help rather than inside linebacker help at this current juncture. Things could change, and I may change my tune, but and I won't deny that Drew Sanders is a very solid player. In fact, he's probably one of the top inside linebacker prospects in this entire draft. Just don't necessarily know if the Buccaneers could afford that. It seems more like a luxury pick rather than a need pick, in my opinion. I feel like they still have a lot of question marks at corner, at edge rusher, at possibly even offensive line as well. Maybe wide receiver a little bit. They have a lot of question marks that they need to worry about. An inside linebacker just isn't the concern right now. And I think that Lavonte David could even come back, which is always a possibility, or they could get somebody in free agency, or just rely on KJ Britt as well. And I think that that would be a very serviceable thing indeed. But anyway, folks, let me know what you think about this mock draft. Would you be interested in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Drew Sanders? Do you agree with my analysis of this pick by Bucky Brooks? Do you think that the Buccaneers should have two Devin White level guys in the middle there to help with pass rush, or do you feel the Buccaneers would be better suited to go for an edge rusher, a corner, something along those lines? Anyway, folks, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Now we'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.